One and all, then hopefully you are with us on YouTube. There might be a bit of a delay, but on the line this evening, then co-host of the Saints FC podcast, Mr. Tom Parker. How the devil are you?
I'm really good. How are you guys doing there? All well?
Not too bad. I thought we'd better sort of fill in for a little bit of John kind of catchphrases whilst he's enjoying his holiday in
Yeah.
Portugal, and this could almost be sort of episode 74 of the Saints FC podcast.
Yeah, but you've not quite got the moustache yet, but you can work on that. You can work on
Well, November's coming, so
that.
we might give it a shot. Try and
John's
raise.
been doing November for the last about 10 years, but yeah.
John, you're gonna have to send us some textbooks, mate. How to grow a mustache. Right. So this is the sort of Leicester City match build-up show. Then do get your questions in on the live chat. I can see a few of you already joining us on YouTube right now. So get your questions in. Anything you want to ask us, anything you want to ask Tom, how he grows his beard, how was his trip to Wolves? Tell us your sort of review on Wolves, Leicester at the weekend, our best defender of the season so far, or anything else in between. But Tom, let's start off then with Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Southampton 1. I guess what is your sort of general verdict on that?
Well, it was great to stop the rot. I think that was the most important thing after three disappointing defeats, particularly the manner in which we played over the last three games. I think it was really important that Saints put in a committed performance. I don't think anyone would argue it was a vintage team performance from Saints. Again, the usual problems were there. We looked very shaky at the back, doubling up on Jimenez. Vestergaard looked very, very soft, really, against Jimenez. And again, we were a bit wasteful in front of goal. But having said that, it's a point. They've won their three previous games in a row. It's not an easy place to go. And I think if you'd have asked the 2,000 Saints fans at Wolves if they'd have taken a point before the game, I think most of them would have said they would.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, would have taken a 1-0 draw. A lot of us almost predicted it. I certainly did predict a Desmond 2-2. I think there were going to be goals in it. I can't see us ever sort of keeping a clean sheet in the near future at all. And Wolves, as you say, very good results recently, winning away at Man City, Besiktas in the Europa League as well. But I think we have to sort of also say before we even get to the decisions in VAR and obviously Danny Ings' goal, but as you said, I think we had a little bit of we're a bit ponderous in possession. I think we had a bit of a reluctancy to shoot, and I think Ralph has almost got to sort of encourage that more often with when you get a sight on goal, take a shot.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny. Fair play to Danny Ings. I mean, he has a chance which is straight away into the second half, which is gifted to him, which he just sort of passes back to the Wolves keeper. We're not very deadly in front of goal, and if you look, we do attack with pace, but then we kind of lack a final killer touch. I think Danny Ings is a fascinating footballer because he's not particularly big. He's not someone you'd say holds the ball up. That's his skill, like a Graziano Pella was. He's not particularly fast either, like a Redmond is. He's just a really, really good finisher. And I think the problem we seem to lack is a real cutting edge, balls across the 6-yard box. If you look at what Man City do, where they sort of tear teams to shreds and then end up with just a sort of simple tap in from 6 yards, that's what we need to try. I mean, that's what we need to do. It's probably the hardest thing to do in football, but we do seem a bit laborious when we're going forward.
It almost seems like, because sometimes watching the Saints, we're almost trying to work it and sort of walk it into the net. In
Yeah.
fact, I said this to actually Matt at the weekend. Danny Ings has now scored sort of 4 in a goal. With sort of one of the, I guess, his best sort of purple patch in a Saints shirt. The best sort of returning goals recently, and he's just fed on scraps. Just imagine what he can score with a playmaker behind him, sort of feeding him fantastic balls.
Yeah, if you imagine what he'd have done with a Tadic, he'd have easily be smashing double figures each season. I think Saints have, we seem to be very comfortable pressing from. I mean, we all know this, pressing from the front. That's when we're at our strongest. It's almost like when we actually have the opportunity to think about what to do and to try and build an attack, that's where we struggle. We'd almost rather have, win the ball back and then try and attack from there. It's almost when we build up an attack, that's when we kind of lose our heads a little bit.
There are certainly some triggers as well that whilst we are sort of pressing hard the pitch as well, we're kind of trying to force them into areas, but we're also sort of sitting off for sort of periods of the game too. We've seen sort of Danny Ings make those little bursts, put the goalkeeper under pressure as well, and that's where we've sort of got a bit of return from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at a lot of the goals he's scoring, they're quite cheap goals. The goal on Saturday was a great finish. But again, if you're Wolves, you'd be desperately disappointed with that goal. So, fair play to Danny Ings because he is making a silk purse out of Salzburg at the moment from Saints.
Right, we've got some questions or comments already from Lyndon. Hello once again. Hi, Lyndon. Who is that sort of logo you've got there on your profile picture? I don't know. You're going to have to tell us more in the comments. One more comment from Saints. Right, perfect note, actually, which is my next one. Saints wants to know how many decisions we've got in our favour this season. Tom, have you been counting?
I think it's 6 now. Because 2 on Saturday. VAR, we've been saying he's our best defender. I mean, it's not hard. It's not a sort of difficult competition to win at the moment. But I think that's 6 now, and we've been very fortunate. My only worry is that we're getting VAR decisions where you'd think it'd be pretty obvious for the referee. I mean, the first Jimenez goal on Saturday, you could see clear as day it was a handball, and the referees are almost becoming over-reliant on it. They're scared to do anything unless VAR gives them the go-ahead. But yeah, I think VAR has absolutely benefited Saints this season, and long may it continue.
Yeah, well, we've certainly due some good karma, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is payback for Man United at Wembley. I think this is sort of a long-term karma that we're getting back. But yeah, it's definitely helping us out. And if you look, the goal that wasn't on Saturday, the Wolves goal towards the end of the first half, that would have been a real sucker punch for Saints. I don't know if Saints psychologically have been able to come back from that had it been given. And there's no way any referee and any set of linesmen in the country would ever have disallowed that goal unless it had been disallowed by VAR. So, Saints can be really grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think it also comes down to maybe the arrogance or the ego of the referee. We've had the referee at the weekend was so reluctant to sort of make his own decisions. He wants to check with VAR, and also maybe sort of 19 out of 20 of the Premier League officials want to go to VAR just to kind of please themselves, kind of just check over the review. But if you've got a character like Mike Dean, I think he'd be more inclined to just say, "That's my decision."
I think as well that the perverse thing is they go to VAR for some things and not for others. And VAR seems tremendously. Well, I don't think this entire season VAR has overruled a penalty that's been given. So VAR has obviously given penalties, but when it comes to penalties like the one given against Saints on Saturday, which I think the best will in the world, the clever Doherty played for it is probably the most polite thing you can say. That's where VAR should also step in and help referees and say, well, look, what is the contact? The contact is the Wolves player essentially jumping into Højbjerg. So therefore, that's not a penalty. But instead, you can be conned by a player. VAR should help you out. It doesn't. So it's a great system, but I think they need to tweak it. And the other thing I'd say is the time. It was brilliant on Saturday when that Wolves goal towards the end of the first half was disallowed. But it took 2 or 3 minutes, and they really need to get it faster.
Well, Alan Shearer made a good point on Match of the Day at the weekend. Actually, other review shows are available. Premier League highlights show, but Alan Shearer highlighted that there is a monitor on every touchline and every sort of dugout by the tunnel, but the referees have not even attempted to even look at it and review their own decisions.
Well, you just can't. I mean, there's something about referees. I think we've all played football, and there's always something a bit odd about people who want to be referees. You never strike you as the sort of people that are going to want to row back on a decision they've made. But ultimately, the game is so fast. The players are so clever now. You look at Doherty winning that penalty on Saturday. It's a very, very shrewd thing for him to do. And referees need all the help they can get to make the right decisions.
Yeah. Right. Let's pick the bones then of the 2 decisions that go for us this time. So the first one, just before the half-time break, or in fact, sort of midway through the first half, was it?
About that,
it was the handball, obviously coming over the top. But once again, it is a long high ball which has bamboozled our defence.
Yeah, completely right. I mean, the handball was clear as day. I don't think there's no doubt about that, and you could sort of see the muted appeals from Jimenez probably showed that. But again, you're absolutely right. It's a long high ball towards Vestergaard. Should be capable of dealing with it. Jimenez is a big guy, but he's nowhere near as big as Vestergaard. And really, we've got lucky that because if that hadn't been a handball, Angus Gunn was in no man's land. Vestergaard was nowhere near him, and it was a very shrewd finish. But again, teams are going to be looking at that. On Saturday, Friday night, Leicester are going to be looking at that and thinking, get those high balls over the top to Vardy and cause Saints all sorts of problems.
Absolutely, and we know what sort of damage Vardy can cause against the likes of Southampton defenders. But I think you've highlighted Angus Gunn there as well. I think it is a worrying sign that every time that he comes off his line, I'm holding my breath. That is sort of very worrying from a goalkeeper, and it doesn't give you much or breathe you much sort of confidence in the man between the sticks if he's doing that all the time.
No, and I think it's an interesting one because I'm not sure what McCarthy ever really did to justify being dropped. But I think the problem we have with Gunn now is if you look, I think on Saturday, Wolves didn't have many shots on target. I think they only had a couple. And again, right, one is a penalty. You can't really expect him to save the penalty. It's a very, very well taken penalty. But again, if you look in the last sort of 4 or 5 games, the number of shots on target that Gunn has faced compared to the number of goals he's let in, they're not good. I mean, you look at the first goal against Tottenham was a bit soft. We're porous at the back, and we need a goal. We need a real strong shot keeper, and I'm not quite sure right now if Angus Gunn is it.
Yeah, I think it is about time that maybe Alex McCarthy replaces Angus Gunn in the lineup. And I said this in last week's show, and I think to other commenters, at the weekend, sort of. Ralph took Shea Adams away from the spotlight or the pressure. To sit him out for a week off, or more than a few weeks now. He's been out of the starting 11. But I think it's perhaps that Angus Gunn gets that sort of treatment.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, goalkeepers obviously, they are more under scrutiny than any other player on the pitch, and if they make a mistake, it is generally a goal. I think one of the things we've seen from Ralph is a lot of tinkering. Everything that's from the frankly mad from Danso right back to the sort of perplexing and persevering with Vestergaard. What I would say with Ralph is he does seem to be coming around to working out what is best, certainly his best defence is, which is, I think it's probably Bertrand at left back, Yoshida, Bednarek, and then one of Valerie or Cedric. The only bit there that, he's not messed around with so far is the keeper. And you wonder if Friday night goes badly for Saints, then it could be time for a change.
Yeah, I think it is about time, and a lot of people are becoming unsettled with that sort of uncertainty in defence and the goalkeeper situation as well. So moving on then to the second VAR decision, I think again I'm going to use the word bamboozle because I think if you look at the replay, Yoshida's, I'm going to pick Yoshida out here, but his body shape was in the total opposite direction as the runner and the striker, and as the ball comes through, all right, we get away with it to some extent as his foot is offside, but it's an easy ball once again. Sort of the defenders have got their body shapes all wrong here.
Yeah, and from memory, I think it came from a Saints attack. It was a Wolves counter attack, and it looked like a perfectly good goal, to be honest. I mean, if anything, when they started to do the VAR check, there was kind of a bit of a tasty 50-50 challenge in the build-up to it, and you wondered if it was for that. But again, they're bringing the game back quite some way. If you really think about it, probably there's at least sort of 3 or 4 interactions happen after the offside. Saints were very, very lucky, to be fair. I mean, it's a right decision. But again, as you say, our defending was off. Yoshida, who I thought otherwise had a very, very strong game, was all at sea. But I don't think it helps anyone. And you don't want to blame one player solely. It's not anyone's whole fault. But Vestergaard seems to be the sort of, rather than providing order and a sense of seniority and a sense of discipline in there, he kind of almost seems to make other players panic. And again, I just don't think he's the right player for Saints now, and sadly, I don't think he's ever going to be the right player for Saints.
Yeah, I mean, it's worrying again. Sort of, we've got serious errors and sort of weaknesses in that area of the pitch. Vestergaard, this is the man that has sort of taught us player outfield in the entire division. That's given us sort of all sorts of issues. He can't sort of jump off the ground to reach the header, and he's getting bamboozled by a sort of long ball over the top as well. But as soon as that goal goes in, that's the moment I rushed downstairs. I thought, right, I'm going to skip the queue, get a quick drink in before everybody starts rushing down, and then suddenly, whilst I'm in the gents, no goal.
It was brilliant. I mean, I can't imagine how frustrating, when I'm there and it goes against Saints, but. Yeah, the Wolves fans are giving it some good noise, and for anyone who's not been to Wolves, one of the slightly odd things about being an away fan is the way they've designed the layout is that the away fans were all on one lower level, very spread out. So it's very hard to get sort of noise going compared to what is a very noisy Wolves fans. And they were giving it some large. And then when that goal was disallowed, it was a real Kodak moment. It was absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. Right. Got some comments coming through. Hello, good evening to Dean. Hello, there you are. There's your comment. And a couple of comments from Jeff, actually, who says he's a steward working on Friday night's game and then the Bristol versus the Skates game on Saturday. Hello, Jeff. And the next comment he comes up with: we need to score a few more goals. We're averaging right now just one per game.
Yeah, and the problem we have is that we're always going to concede. I think we very rarely look like not conceding, so we have to start scoring more than one goal. It's quite obvious, and right now we're just not looking capable of doing that. Even Nathan Redmond doesn't seem to be quite getting in the right positions. Strangely enough, Boufal doesn't seem to offer any sort of goal scoring threat. It really is, in a world where James Ward-Prowse isn't scoring, where Højbjerg's not scoring, we're solely reliant on Danny Ings right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a comment from Saints once again joining us on the comments just there. We are relying on Danny Ings to steal the show, if you like, to put the ball in the back of the net. And we're now sort of relying now on this talisman that is Danny Ings. Scored his 4th goal in the row at the weekend. Smart, sort of composed finish, sort of pouncing on that little error that's as the ball comes over from the centre back. So they try to play it to midfield. Højbjerg intercepts it, gets it onto Danny Ings, who knocks it past Cody, who could have been blown up by a sort of a handball. And he's quite smart in his approach to goal here as well. He sort of plays it across Willy Bollo, who if he touches, he could have gone down for a penalty, but takes a quick look up, sees a Patricio oncoming, and then just slots it away in the opposite corner.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I thought that the move to run towards Bolly is almost counterintuitive, but you're absolutely right. It almost makes it impossible for Bolly to make any sort of challenge. And again, fair play to Danny Ings. He had arguably had an easier chance maybe just before that when the ball was passed to him by a Wolves defender on the edge of the penalty box, and he sort of just taps it back to Patricio. Fair play to him for not letting his head go down and for such a smart finish. But again, it's a goal that's kind of come from Ings pressuring a centre back from the opposition making a mistake, and we need to move away from those. We need to start scoring our own hard-earned goals.
And we've seen that sort of influence from Redmond and to some extent Ward-Prowse last season, but none of which has sort of caught fire this season.
Yeah, I mean, Ward-Prowse is a funny one. He does look out of sorts. He's almost lost the spark from last year, which is very worrying. You'd think this would have been the season he really would have kicked on, but he's not, and he still hasn't really. He's got a few goals last season, but you could argue still not really found his shooting boots.
Another comment here. I'd like to see more of Che Adams. I'd encourage him to get on the ball more, but I think he needs the chance back in the same team to have his opportunity in front of goal. And also begs the question: sort of what is our sort of best lineup? You have to say, is it Che Adams alongside Danny Ings, and sort of, or is it a 4-3-3 or 3-5-2, etc.?
This is the big question for Saints, and I don't think anyone knows. We clearly want to play 4-2-2-2, but we just look so weak at the back with only 2 centre backs that we're almost forced to play a sort of 5-3-2. And if you play that, you can't drop Redmond, you can't drop Ings. So where does that leave players like Che Adams? Che Adams' bad run in front of goal isn't just a Saints bad run. I think he was towards the end of last season. I think he didn't score for something like 8 or 9 games for Birmingham. So his actual, his goal scoring streak is non-goal scoring streak is something like 16 games now, which is it's half a season. The positive thing about Che Adams though is he keeps making the runs. He keeps causing people problems. But again, he doesn't seem to be first choice, and certainly, or even really second choice at the moment for the Saints. And you could argue that Ralph is being quite cautious in games, and chucking on a forward is maybe when you've got a point you can retrieve. Do you sort of chuck on another midfielder like an Armstrong to keep the ball, or do you chuck on another forward? And if we're playing cautious, then I'm afraid Che Adams is one of the players who's going to miss out.
Yeah, it's also unsettling for us as well, and a lot of us have caught on to the fact that Ralph was making these late substitutions. Again, sort of quite late at the weekend, 75 minutes in, and very reluctant to make the changes against Chelsea, as Jeff has commented here in on YouTube.
Yeah, I'd agree, and it seems to be the same substitutions every time. You know, Armstrong comes on for 9 minutes, 8 minutes or so to do something clever, to either try and keep the ball or to try and create something. Um, One of the things we don't seem to have is a real dynamic sort of sense of substitutions when things are going wrong. We don't sort of step in and change them immediately. Ralph obviously really believes in the system. Um, you know, he's in Ralph we trust, but I think we could do with seeing some real imagination from the subs that we just sort of don't get. But I wonder if that's the sort of players we have on the bench now. I know Josh Sims, Boothhouse a little bit inconsistent to say the least. You know, does he really feel he has game changers off the bench? I'm not sure he does.
Yeah, I think he made a little bit of a mistake here, sending Josh Sims on loan to New York Red Bulls, who opened his account at the weekend
Really good goal
for the season. Yet well taken, good play from him in the end. But lastly, then on the Wolves sort of notes here. Of course, the lead didn't last very long, as it never does with Saints, does it really? Clumsy defending, I think, 2 opportunities to clear it. At first, I actually argued it was a penalty just after the game, but after watching it back sort of half a dozen times afterwards, the reverse angles, all sorts of other key angles, it does appear that Doherty does swing his leg over Højbjerg to find the foul.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like from where, even before Doherty is fouled, you can sort of see what he's aiming to do. He's aiming to draw contact. Saints are stupid as well. Saints are naive. Players like Højbjerg, lots of international caps, played in the Bundesliga, played at the top level. They shouldn't be falling for it. But at the same time, fair play to Doherty. He makes that run. It's very direct. We stand off him. And in the end, he wins the penalty, and the referee gets no assistance from VAR. And this is one of the crazy things of VAR, where VAR is so willing to step in and make very marginal calls on things to stop goals. But I don't think this season there's been a single time when a referee has given a penalty, not for Saints, but against any team, when a penalty's been given and the VAR hasn't overruled it, which is something VAR can do. And you'd argue that's where referees need the help. For me, it was the most charitable thing I could say. It was a very, very, very soft penalty.
Well, I mean, if you look at the decisions over the course of the weekend, I think De Bruyne was denied a stone wall penalty at the weekend in the Man City game. But, so far this season, I think VAR, however we signed him from, I'm not sure, come out of obscurity. He must have been scouted by the black box for somewhere, but he's been our best defender. Or she, it's 2019 after all.
It's the modern world. But yeah, I mean, thank God for VAR. I mean, if you think, where would we be? I mean, we'd have, that goal from Sheffield United would have been given. I think, Brighton's goal I hope it wouldn't be given. But, Saints don't really seem like a team that's going to come back from 1-0 down and win a game 2-1. VAR decisions for us have been at pivotal moments in games. And I think, we're going to need that luck to go into the weekend.
Yeah, and to answer your question there, Mark, our best sign of the summer has been Ronald VAR. So there we go. Right, and as we say, so we would have taken a point before the start of play, and has stopped the rot. So it doesn't sort of win us 3 points, but it's not going to be easy. Then again, this Friday as Leicester third in the Premier League visiting St Mary's.
Yeah, I mean, and Leicester are a really good team, aren't they? They're kind of what Saints should be doing right now. I think players like Maddison, heavily linked with Saints before he went to Leicester. We ended up with Stuart Armstrong. I think you could argue that Leicester got the better side of that one. Saints obviously maybe didn't want to spend the money, or he was more happy to go to Leicester. But yeah, it's a fascinating game on Friday. Saints really do have a home hoodoo. I think maybe the crowd get on their back just faster than they do at St Mary's than they do away from home. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes a bit hostile to some extent, and difficult to get some sort of atmosphere going at St Mary's. I think we're desperate to find some sort of form. We haven't made St Mary's a fortress for a long time, and that's why we're picking up more points away from home, because there's less pressure.
Yeah, and if you look, I mean, our home games this season, Man United aside, the performances have been Liverpool performance was good, but obviously we get no points. So, we really could do with kicking on. But this is a really hard game. Leicester have real quality going forward. The sort of player like Jamie Vardy, with his pace, with his intelligence and his experience that he has, could cause our centre backs real problems. They've got quality in midfield with Maddison. They've got quality at the back. They're just a really good team, and I think they're 1 point ahead of where they were when they won the championship. So the sky's the limit for this Leicester team, really. But Saints are going to have to be on top form to get anything from the game.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers has sort of added a bit of extra spice to this team, haven't they? They've got sort of a young, dynamic side, albeit sort of a Jamie Vardy aside, but he's spearheading attack, running onto balls. He'll never sort of give up, will he? Sort of into his 32s now. But building the team around the likes of Maddison, Tielemans, signed from a permanent deal in the summer, Ricardo and Chilwell, two fantastic fullbacks at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at that, I mean, that's the difference, isn't it, with Saints? We'll try and uncover a diamond. You look at that, Leicester went and bought in Tielemans, a top world-class midfielder that, just off the shelf went and got him rather than hoping that he turns good. Maddison, you could argue, was probably the best young English player, certainly outside the Premier League, but you could probably argue full stop before he signed for Leicester. So we have, they've really stepped up. And I think the problem with Saints, and this is not a revolutionary thought, is that we've tried to get it right with a number of signings, and our signings are just off. The more money we've paid for players, the worse they are.
Yeah, well, this is down to the recruitment process and Ross Wilson and Les Reed and the people before him. But it is a chance for a fresh start, I guess, in the next sort of coming months. But I guess that's a conversation for another day. Whilst we sort of wait, what's going to happen there? They're after this kind of a player trading expert.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, who knows? I think the strange thing with Saints is that for so many years we heard about this intelligent black box system that thinks differently. That we're looking at players that are 18, knowing we're going to sign them when they're 23. And then we just seem to sort of sign players like Carrillo, who don't seem to fit that mold at all. We've got a huge number of these players that we must be paying a fortune in wages to. Carrillo, Hoyt, out on loan. We've got Jordi Classy. You could argue Vestergaard has not lived up to his billing. It's quite hard, really, to look at where the successes have been in the transfer market in the last few years. I think you could probably argue Redmond and Danny Ings are probably two of the only real impact players.
I'd argue Pierre Højbjerg as well, sort of now become the captain,
and Bednarek as well, I think. But again, even Bednarek wasn't an expensive signing. Again, the more money we spend, the less impactful our signings seem to be, and that's a legacy we've got of Ross Wilson, and we really need to turn that around because in 3 or 4 months, if we continue a really bad run of form, we might be staring down the barrel of relegation, and then the whole recruitment policy looks completely different.
Right, on to Friday night then, under the lights, front of the TV cameras. How do we approach this then? Jeff has another question here. How do you consider our game to be high press, and which is what sort of Ralph confessed to favour? Do we try go hell for leather and press Leicester high up the pitch on Friday?
Well, I think the problem with Saints is the press is great until someone unpicks the press. And if you look at, we're very actually easy to bypass. We press up the pitch, but then if you can get the ball past Romeu, then all of a sudden you're attacking a very, very weak defence. I think Saints have to recognise the strengths of Leicester. I think they have to treat them with respect. You'd hope that Romeu is maybe appointed to do a number on Maddison to try and keep him out of the game. You'd hope Yoshida is probably, or Bednarek is left on Vardy. I think Saints have to play the best game they know, which is high press. We don't seem to be able to score goals from any other style of football. So if we can press high and we can cut Vardy's supply off, then that would seem like our best chance.
But then if we're pressing hard at the pitch, it almost leaves us a little bit vulnerable for that long ball.
Yeah, 100%. And this is the dilemma. I mean, what can you do if you've got professional Premier League footballers who have hundreds of Premier League and hundreds of top flight appearances between them? Yeah, and I'm sure Ralph would say this privately. what do you do if they're undone by a simple ball over the top? What do you do if you're, your first game of the season, you're away at Burnley and you're 6'7" Danish international centre back who's played the majority of his career in the Bundesliga at the top level of European football, can't judge a high ball? That's not Ralph's fault. What do you do?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I don't know what you do with Vestergaard. Sometimes looks a bit like Bambi on ice, trying to find his feet still. Has been there now sort of 18 months or so.
Yeah, I think what I would like to possibly see is I think Yoshida adds such an element of quality at the back, particularly in terms of recycling the ball and getting it back to the keeper. He's very good on the ball. I'd like to see Danso come in at left-sided centre back, build the team around Bednarek in the centre of a back three with Yoshida on the right-hand side. I think we just look much stronger that way. And, I think we just need three centre-backs. Without three centre-backs, we just look all at sea.
So a couple of comments here then. I guess as you're leading with a little bit of a lineup there, Ryan asks, will Gunn stay in goal?
I think he will, because I think Ralph backed him. And to be fair, he had a decent game on Saturday. I don't think he's done quite enough to get dropped, but I'll stick with him. But I think it's probably only good for him that he's got such a quality number two behind him, because I think Saints can swap him out any time.
Yeah, and there's a few sort of comments on Shay Adams here. Andrew says he agrees about Adams. Been disappointing so far. He's not matched the expectations. When we signed him, his confidence seems very low. But I think what it is with Shay, just needs to get on the field, maybe making a little bit of impact in the final sort of 10 minutes, get high at the pitch, and just needs a bit of fortune for the ball to, fall off his shin, off his backside, etc.
You're 100% right. If one of those Danny Ings closing down the goalkeeper goals had been done by Shay Adams, I think you'd be looking at a totally different player. The key thing is when he has played, he's not given up. His work rate is high. He creates chances. He just needs one to go in. And this is not a Shay Adams problem. This is a Saints problem. He's just one of a number of players you could argue that haven't had the return for Saints that they should have done. But, I've got every confidence in Shay Adams. And I think Friday night's an interesting game. You've got Shay Adams, ex-Birmingham. You've got Redmond, ex-Birmingham. There is a bit of spice there with, going up against what was a local rival for them. And, it's the sort of game, we saw how much Redmond loved scoring against Wolves last season. It's the sort of game where if Shay Adams can come on and make a difference, then it, could make a real boost for him as we head into sort of second third of the season, I guess it is.
Yeah, so you've named your defence in Yoshida, Bednarek, Danso. Danso has to play. He hasn't played at centre back at all since he's signed.
No. It's madness, and I mean, I know you've discussed the Bournemouth game in detail, but that was just such a strange thing to do. I mean, he'd been sent off after playing really well against Man United, and almost his reward was, when he comes back into the team, is to be dropped in at right back when you've got a European Cup winning right back playing at left back. It's just such a strange thing to do. And Danso does seem to have the pace and the power, and also I think a bit of quality on the ball that we lack at the back. So I'd love to see Danso come in as sort of the left side of a back three. Absolutely, Bertrand's got to play. Saints looks so much better with Bertrand. That was madness dropping him. And then Valerie at right back. If we're going to play three centre backs, we can afford to have a bit of a buccaneering full back, and I think Valerie's definitely it.
Would that be suggesting then Cedric will not be fit for the weekend? Ryan wants to ask, but as it is sort of quite early in the week right now, we won't be hearing Ralph's press conference until sort of Thursday morning, Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, Wednesday afternoon I think it'll be. But also Ralph does play his cards quite close to his chest on these press conferences. I mean, if players are out and everyone knows they're out, like Gineppo, then he's very happy to say so. But often he does spring a surprise, and if a player is a sort of 50-50, the first you'll hear about whether he's made it or not is whether you see him on the actual pitch on the night. So, it wouldn't surprise me if you don't hear anything and they try and keep Leicester guessing until an hour before the game.
Right, let's move into midfield then. Do get your comments in as well. Tell us your full lineups for the starting 11. So we named our sort of five there. I guess Tom's gone for Gunn in goal, Valerie, Bertrand at the fullbacks, Bednarek, Danso, Yoshida. In midfield then, Tom?
We have to have Romeu. Romeu has been arguably, our best player. I think this season he's really kicked on. I think one of the things about Romeo that used to drive people mad is he's a bit like Wanyama in that he was a professional footballer who didn't really seem comfortable kicking the ball over any great distance, but he's actually been getting lit off the leash a little bit, I think, by Ralph. And I think he's a real quality, and I think he's a real consistency. I think he has to play Højbjerg. Again, Leicester are going to have lots of energy. They're going to have lots of creativity in midfield, and we need someone who can be in there alongside Romeo, breaking things up, recycling the ball. And then, more out of a lack of other options than anything else, I would again stick with Ward-Prowse. I think he does, he does play better on the right hand side when he's got an overlapping fullback, and he does give us an option on set pieces. Although, he didn't get a single assist last season, as far as I think from memory. I don't think he's got an assist yet this season. So, we're terrible at set. This is another thing with States. We're terrible at set pieces. We're awful at throw-ins as well, which is something Kyle Anker has highlighted. Now, if you watch our throw-ins, we're terrible at getting the ball off our own throw-ins. But I do think, Ward-Prowse gives us an element of class, so I'd see him start.
But the quality and the consistency is not there. I think it was the first time this season that I've seen Ward-Prowse actually sort of get the ball above and beyond the first man on the corner. So, good to see that. But I think he lacks a bit of consistency. I think maybe he needs to practice a bit more on those set pieces from corners deliveries rather than spending an extra half an hour, 45 minutes after training on his free kicks. Because how many free kicks do we have? One in maybe 3 games?
I mean, he had an opportunity which he hit pretty good free kick towards the end of the Wolves game on Saturday. But, that's not where we're going to score loads of goals. With the best will in the world, Ward-Prowse scored 2 direct free kicks, I think, last season. Not many players score direct free kicks with any real regularity. Where he can really hurt players and really hurt other teams, is by working on his crossing, his final ball, his corners. We're not really hurting players, and we very rarely create good chances. And when we do, 2 of which you should have had this season, we just can't put them away.
Yeah, I think Ward-Prowse does himself a bit of a favour here, sort of making himself look busy, but whilst not actually sort of offering any influence on the football game. But I would argue that it's a chance now for Boufal to return to the starting 11. We've seen him sort of return with a brand new attitude. He's pressing really high up the pitch. Prime example at Sheffield United, win that ball back to release it for Gineppo, and I think it's a chance Boufal should replace Ward-Prowse in the starting 11 for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. I think fair play to Boufal. I think everyone thought his Saints career was dead and buried, but he's come back. He looks fitter. He looks stronger. He looks broader than he looked before. And I think you're absolutely right. He's added a real sense of strength and robustness to his game that he didn't have before. And he also is. Sorry, please.
Lyndon argues Stuart Armstrong should take Ward-Prowse's position.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout. I mean, you have to look. I mean, you wonder what Stuart Armstrong has ever really done wrong. Stuart Armstrong, Saints get the ball a lot. Get to the we spoke about this already tonight. They get the ball to the final third. They sort of, excuse my language, sort of fanny around a bit with it outside the box, and then lose or take a half shot, which goes wide or goes over. Armstrong seems to be, maybe with Boufal, one of the only players we've got that could really thread a ball through the eye of a needle. And he could really make clever killer passes, and that is something Saints lack is killer passes for easy goals. So you know what, I think it's a good argument. I don't think Armstrong has started a game this season. I'm not sure if I don't think he has, but not only has he got great hair, but he does hurt people. So I'd love to, I'd be very happy for him to start all Boufal.
And I think we're desperate for us to really get that song going. He's been with us now since last season, and we've not even heard a peep from that song. We should have stole it from Celtic.
Yeah, he's a class footballer. He's a real talent. I think Saints aren't using him, and I think maybe Ward-Prowse could, again, like you spoke earlier about players being taken out of the firing line. Maybe Ward-Prowse could do with that. We are at home. If we're going to play 2 relatively defensive midfielders in Højbjerg and Romeo, then an Armstrong wouldn't be a bad thing. And I think what Saints lack is what Sims gave us, which is a player that quickly breaches the line between midfield and attack. And I think Armstrong will give us that. So, and he can take a mean free kick as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a two stirrers here in the comments. I think purely just doing it to wind us up a little bit. Bobby thinks Jack Stevens should play instead of Ward-Prowse, and Abdub 63 thinks Lewis should go in goal, but we haven't seen
Harry
Lewis at all
Lewis.
this
Yeah, well,
season.
that would be brave. Look, I think the Jack Stevens point is an interesting one. It's something that John and I have spoken about a few times, which is Jack Stevens, nicest guy on the planet by all accounts, isn't actually a very comfortable defender. He's not particularly good in the air. He's not hugely strong, and he makes a lot of mistakes, which lead to goal scoring chances. I think what Jack Stevens is very good at is passing the ball and controlling the ball and making opportunities for other players. And I think there is an argument that, yeah, if you were to, you could almost have Jack Stevens as a defensive midfielder, a box to box defensive midfielder. You know, free him of the obligation of having to defend last ditch balls into the box, put him in front of a defence, and I actually think he'd actually work pretty well. But right now, you know, he seems a mile away from that team, and I think his days at Saints are probably numbered.
Yeah, he was transferred listed in the summer. He's been a bit of a castaway, unable to get his move away. I think he only played in the Burnley game at the start of the season. There are sort of possibilities that he could fill in, and perhaps for Danso as well, who could well be a defensive midfielder in the future too. Right, wrap us up then with the rest of your formation. Two left.
Has to be Ings, has to be Redmond. I mean, if you look, Redmond is the one player that you can absolutely rely on. Watching him up close, he's a magician. You know, his ability to get the ball out of a tight area and make something happen for Saints is incredible. And all our best stuff, I think, comes via Redmond. So you can't see him being dropped. And same with Danny Ings. You know, he's probably the first striker, I'd argue, we've had probably since Pella that looks actually like a really smart finisher. And you just can't drop him. And the challenge with Ings is how do we keep him fit? But everything you hear out of him, everything you hear out of the club is that they've worked tremendously hard on that. So, we're going to have to play players that give Leicester something to worry about at the back. And I think Redmond and Ings are the two that do that.
Yeah, those are our two brightest players at the moment. Ryan's lineup is Gunn, Yoshida, Bertrand, Valerie, Bednarek, Danso, Romeo. So far, so good, as per your predictions there, Tom. But Boufal this time instead of Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg, Ings, Redmond. So just change for one. One change for Ryan there. Right. And one thing as well, I think we are desperate, absolutely desperate to wash away this awful kind of home form. We are the worst performing home side in the Premier League, and we tend to be up for it a little bit. The atmosphere gets going, the flamethrowers, the fireworks, all sorts of rubbish, knickknacks and clappers. Hopefully there isn't any clackers at the on Friday, but we tend to be up for it sort of on evening games.
Yeah, we do, but then we would have thought that about the Bournemouth game as well. I think, I don't know. I'd love to know whether players treat it differently because it's on TV. Do they wilt under the pressure a little bit more? I'd hope not. But we need a really strong performance. This is going to be a really difficult game to get a strong performance. I think if Saints can get anything, I think I'd take a draw out of this game. We're in a horrible run of difficult games at the moment. This is one of them. I think if we can even get a point on Friday night, a positive point, we attack, score a couple of goals, maybe see a couple of different goal scorers. I think that would be really positive. And, I have to say I would take a point right now.
Yeah, I think that would almost be a little bit of a springboard, take some positivity. Let's go to the Tuesday night game at Man City, win that game. I think we can afford to probably sack off the away game because Man City probably will have other priorities. I think we've got to go for the cup game, play as best we can, and then sort of return back home. A bit worrying really to sort of be all the way into November without a home win.
Yeah, but this is, this terrible home form for Saints goes back to, Pellegrino. It's, we're just really, really poor at home. And I think no matter what he does, we just have to, if we could just get a bit of luck, get an early penalty, get them down to 10, anything at all. Please, God, anything that we can get. I just take that because, Leicester are real quality.
Right, predictions then. Let's sign us off then. Ryan's kickstarted us with a 2-0 Saints victory, Ings and Redmond to score. What do you think then, Tom?
That would be a dream, wouldn't it? I think we will score. I think that we can. I think I'll probably predict a 1-1 draw. I'd probably go Ings for Saints and Vardy for Leicester. I think a 1-1 draw would be a good result for Saints, and I think it will allow us to, to just put some breathing space between us and those 3 defeats.
Yeah, Ings, I think it's probably going to be a banker for a goal. 5 in a row, that's got to be closing in on a club record somewhere or along the lines. Maybe it might just be Premier League or sort of in this century, if you like. But it'd be good to see Danny Ings on the score sheet, and we've got to keep Jamie Vardy quiet.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, he is their talisman. If we can keep him out of the game, then that's half of the job done for Saints. But at the same time, sorry, as you say, they've got quality all over the pitch. Pereira, Maddison, Tielemans, Demarai Gray, even a player that's hurt Saints in the past. So, I think we've got a tough job on Friday, but I'd love to see a strong performance from Saints.
Abdub predicts a 2-2 draw, and I'm pretty certain, Bobby, you're a wind-up merchant. A 3-0 Vestergaard hat trick.
I don't even think Bobby's a real panda either.
We've called your bluff there, Bobby, but good to see you. Alex as well, optimistic 2-2. So any one of those results, I think it would be quite fair for Saints and sort of a bit of a springboard as well. Right, yeah. I think we'll wrap it up about there. A bit over time, just over 45 minutes on the live stream. Thanks so much for joining us, Tom. And just to remind everybody, can we expect the official episode 74 next week whilst John returns from holiday?
I very much hope so. I'll have a word with John to get his suntan lotion off and get him in the studio. But yeah, very, very much hope so.
Great stuff. And thanks to all of you in the comments, all of your sort of comments, sort of winding us up and all sorts. But great to join. Great for you to have you in the conversation. That's it from us. And we'll speak to you later on sort of Friday night with some fan reactions.
Cheers, Freddie.